Well, hello again and welcome to the heart of the Gosforth grid system. Yeah, we're walking along North Avenue this week, which is probably going to cut across a lot of the streets we've been down previously if you do recognise them. Now, they do say, don't they, that all roads lead to Rome. Now, in these parts, I prefer to work to the mantra that all roads lead to the county. The county's a pub, by the way, for those of you who don't know. It's actually where Steve Bruce took us when he was first appointed, and he paid for all the food and drink as well. So see, there was a time when I really liked Brucey. Yeah, come on, Eddie. You can't hide behind FFP this time, can you, when it comes to buying us reporters a beer? Hopefully, with any luck, that might be Estrella in Madrid next year. But yeah, that's probably a conversation for down the line, and we'll get the news of Eddie's press conference shortly. I've just emerged from there. Some key injury news to bring you later on as well, and a few other things to address. But first of all, I actually want to revisit last week's video, and if you remember, I came out of Eddie's press conference and we'd asked him the question about, will players like Declan Rice be attainable for Newcastle in the summer if securing Champions League football? And Eddie didn't shut it down, did he? If anything, he welcomed the discussion, which led to inevitable headlines. And I said in last week's video, it was my job as a reporter, as a journalist, to go away and find out, exactly if players like Declan Rice of that ilk, if A, they were targets, and B, if they were, how likely would those moves be to materialise? Now, yeah, I've done my job. I've gone away. I wrote a story on this earlier in the week, but I'm bringing you the sort of the narrative version now. And the answer is no. Not because Newcastle lack ambition, not because they don't like these players, not because these players are, they're on the list. Declan Rice, Mason Mount, these names are on the list. But you're looking at a transfer fee of 80 to 100 million pounds plus wages upwards of 250,000. Now, while the transfer fee, of course, that is prohibitive to a degree, Newcastle paid 60 million pounds for Alexander Isak last summer, so to stretch to 80 wouldn't be massively outlandish, especially not with Champions League money, and we'll come on to exactly what that means in a moment. It's more the wages. Now, the message stressed to me in the week was Newcastle will not shatter their wage structure for any player this summer, and there are several reasons for that. First of all, in the immediacy, just protecting one of the big success stories of what Newcastle have done over the last 18 months has been the wage structure. The top players at the moment, the likes of Bruno Guimaraes, are on about £120,000 a week before bonuses. Now, that for me has been absolutely key to maintaining a dressing room harmony, a spirit, which has been a big driver of their success, that you haven't got any player out there way out in front on vastly inflated wages compared to their teammates, and they want to protect that, and they should be applauded for implementing that so far. So why would they then bring someone in on double that? It causes all sorts of problems. All of a sudden, you've got Bruno knocking on your door, you've got Callum Wilson knocking on your door. Everybody else, beneath that is looking at the wage and thinking they should be proportionately dragged up as well. So that's reason one in terms of what it does to the rest of the squad. Two is they just can't afford to take that risk. Say you commit to a £250,000–300,000 a week footballer over the next 5 years, a Declan Rice type, that's probably the money he's looking for, and you don't make the Champions League beyond next season. Well, you've got a huge problem there. So Newcastle have got to be sensible in terms of that growth. As well, what has been again, this was stressed to me, what has been the success of their transfer model so far? It hasn't been buying proven Premier League players at a premium price. It's been identifying Bruno Guimaraes for 36 million, Sven Botman for 32 million. Why do they want to deviate from that model when, Newcastle's recruitment has been the envy of the Premier League and probably the envy of Europe to a degree in terms of what they've managed to achieve on while they've spent money, significant money. What is it, £250 million now, but they've the value they've extracted from that, every deal, Nick Pope 10 million, Kieran Trippier 12 million, why all of a sudden do they want to start throwing 80, 100 million pound around? Dan Ashworth said to us up in the suite at St James's there last year, if Newcastle have got to pay 100 million pound for a player in terms of where their journey is right now, something has gone wrong with their model and their recruitment. So I totally understand that. It's got to be an evolutionary journey is the way it's been put to me, and they've got to gradually increase revenues across the board. They came in and which is really rare for a club. Newcastle's match day revenue, the tickets and everything else was greater than the commercial and the sponsorship, which just isn't. That should never be the case. They've got to bring everything in line, and as I say, that is a gradual journey. But should they qualify for the Champions League, then of course there will be an absolutely huge boost to the transfer kitty this summer. And that there's two things on that. They'll have more money to spend, but more importantly, they're going to have to spend it, and they recognise that Newcastle this season could not cope with a campaign which combined Premier League and Carabao Cup football. Now, you chuck in Champions League in there as well, and you need a far better squad in terms of depth and quality than what they've got at the moment, and that allows for, my opinion, that they've got some very good, excellent players in there, but I just think that they need more, and they would recognise that as well. There's no point in qualifying for the Champions League and then, suffering in the Champions League itself, being potentially, they would never be showing up, but struggling in the Champions League, and then it impacting on your domestic campaign. If they qualify for the Champions League, they've got to do something about it this summer, and they will have the money. The way it was put to me was, Newcastle's budgets at the moment, everything is accounted for in your domestic budget. So Champions League football at this stage where they're at now is in effect free cash. So everything you get on top of that, the only thing you've got to pay for extra is pretty much your travel. Everything else will be free money, which would have to be invested in the playing squad. Now, what do they want? In terms of first team players, they want a left back, they want a right-sided centre back, they want a midfielder who is a number 6, potentially as well another midfielder, an 8, a creative type, a younger striker, a younger goalkeeper, and a winger was mentioned to me as well. So that's pretty much every position on the park. I realise covering all bases, but that's the word that is out there among intermediaries. Now, names which have been put forward, James Maddison is that sort of slight rung below Mount and Rice in terms of probably the wages that are being asked for. Newcastle have gone for him before, so they think it might be attainable. The word coming back to us for the last couple of months now is that Maddison perhaps prefers a move down south amid interest from Spurs, but you never know. Listen, if Newcastle qualify for the Champions League, Spurs don't, and Leicester are relegated, I think, that throws all cards in the air, doesn't it? And we'll see what comes from that. But his name is on the list still. In terms of midfielders, Scott McTominay, we've spoken about him. The interesting one to re-emerge in the past week or so during conversations is, if I pronounce this right, Kepram Thuram at Nice, the 22-year-old midfielder. And wow, if you look at his YouTube compilations, which I agree is, entry-level scouting, but we've run out of room on North Avenue, we're going to walk back up. Is entry-level scouting, but he looks a tremendous talent. I know Newcastle are keen on him, and he has been watched. So where else is that? Kieran Tierney as well is a name that keeps on coming back in terms of that left-back option. I know scouts have been in attendance at some Arsenal games recently, as they are. They're across the country really in terms of gathering that knowledge and those reports on different players. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting few weeks. What is it now? April, we're already talking about recruitment. We're forgetting there's a hell of a lot of football to play, and they've got to secure Champions League football first. But nonetheless, the word coming back is, just to summarise on that, no, Newcastle won't be going, as much as they'd love to, they won't be going after Declan Rice and Mason Mount for £250,000, £300,000 a week at £80 to £100 million transfer fees. That's just not where they're at right now, and I understand that, and I think that's sensible. Now, coming back to Eddie's press conference today, the injury news, I spoke about Alan St-Maximin, who hasn't yet returned from France. He's still out there getting treatment on a hamstring injury. Now, where are we at with St-Max? Because as much as you guys and others said he was a big miss down at Villa last weekend, yes, he was. He'd had a couple of decent games, hasn't he? But again, it comes back to, he's a player who just can't hold form and can't hold fitness. So where are they at with him? Well, I honestly think if an offer comes in, and I maintain this was the case last summer too, if an offer comes in that is acceptable for all parties, I think he'll move on. I think he'll go. Now, that's for down the line. In the short term, they've got to get him back, because as he showed in those games, West Ham, Man United, he still is, when he's on song and when he's in the mood and when he's fit, he is an invaluable asset. We saw that all through the Steve Bruce reign as well. And it's just a shame that for such a big game on Sunday against a team who Spurs who are low on confidence, not just at the back, all over the park, the last thing they would probably want, especially how bad their defence is someone like St Max running at them. So it's a real shame that he won't even be available off the bench. Just to talk about the Villa match for a second, to me, as a collective, I think it just looked like a team who had played 3 games away from home. Sometimes I think players, you just need to go back home to top up on a little bit of love, a little bit of energy, and they'll feel that on Sunday. They just looked like a side who were mentally drained as much as anything from the word go. And I have to say on the selection, and I do want to say this because Now, Eddie wasn't left with much choice as to whether he played Anthony Gordon or not, because of the injuries St Max we've talked about and the loss of Sean Longstaff. So Gordon came in and he had done well on the pitch down at Brentford, of course. I understand it from that perspective. But for me, I do just think it sent the wrong message. I thought what Gordon did at Brentford when he threw his arm up in Eddie's face, I just didn't think it was on message with what this team and what this squad has been all about in terms of the driver of their success, that collectiveness, that togetherness. And I was down at Nottingham Forest Man United on Sunday and spoke to a former player on the phone on the way down, and they said, no way would Fergie have ever started Anthony Gordon if he'd have done that to him the previous week. Now Eddie is different, he's a new age manager, perhaps he thought that by putting him in he would be rewarded with a performance, and it shows that there is no issue he's brushed under the carpet. I totally understand that, and who am I to doubt Eddie Howe? But for me, I didn't like what Gordon did at Brentford, and I think it just shows there's probably a fair degree of work to do with Gordon, not football wise, just mentality wise, to get him up to speed with exactly what that squad and this club is all about right now. Which brings us on to Tottenham Sunday. Now, wow, yeah, 4th versus 5th, and this is going to be a huge indicator as to where the rest of Newcastle United season goes and as to whether they are going to be playing Champions League football next year. Now, I spoke to a Spurs supporting colleague yesterday, and he said Newcastle win. He said, Newcastle win, Spurs lose. It's as simple as that. He thinks they're going to slide down to 7th or 8th, and certainly when you watch them now, to keep the assistant in charge, it just seems like a car crash. I think Newcastle back at St James's, after a few weeks away, that'll bring out just that little bit extra in the players, in the crowd. And you saw what the crowd did to Villa last week. The noise down there before the game sounded, it was incredible. And Villa started with that energy and that intensity and really put Newcastle to the sword early on. And I think Newcastle have got to do the same to Spurs on Sunday. And yeah, my prediction that Newcastle would win at Villa 7 days ago looks quite stupid now, but I'm pretty confident that they will beat Spurs on Sunday and will give themselves that cushion in terms of the top 4 race. So yeah. Anyway, we're running out of road now. I'll be at the game. I'll be at the game on Sunday. Again, thank you for watching. All the links to the different stories from the past week will be in the description below. Please hit like, it helps. Please hit subscribe, and I'll be back on Sunday with my thoughts after Newcastle versus Spurs. If you go and enjoy it, and yeah, let's hope for a good game. I really think it could be a cracker. Okay, take care guys, see you soon, bye bye.